Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Practical Pet Business. There are so many things that we learn throughout our travels in the pet world, in the pet industry. And I know, especially Lauren and I, we love to share, but there is a fine line. And increasingly these days, I've had folks reaching out to me, Lauren, how do I educate without, lecturing folks, without turning them off to the information I want to share? Because I'm trying to help, but it's not being received the way that it used to be received. What's your
The way
advice to
that
them?
it used to be received, that's interesting. Um, so is that on the part of the listener or the
Yeah,
speaker?
and maybe I'll just explain on that a little bit more. So, I think my response back to a couple of these folks that are in a group was there was not this plethora of information available
Mm,
with the typing of one sentence, and
right.
I think that has almost lulled people into, well, I've got an expert in my, palm of my hand, meaning, the phone. Um, and certainly a great tool. Use it all the time, rely on it for many different things. But at the end of the day, there are still experts in areas that I will listen to and I want to listen to. And then there are some that, just quite frankly, probably don't need to listen to your 20-minute diatribe. So
Hmm.
jump off the soapbox. And I think that's the balance that folks are struggling with now. When do people want to hear from me? And when do people maybe not appreciate hearing from me? Because I don't want to drive them away from my business.
Hmm. We live in a time of information saturation, and it does come down to how it's delivered time and time again. Um, I know for us, the easy fix for that, two things basically. One was to not be the only one speaking. Ask a lot of questions, involve them, have a conversation. Um, and the other part of that is to personalize it to their animals, personalize it to their situation, and to be able to provide information relative to that that also provides a potential remedy to a situation or something, specific. Um, the world is full of people who are just talking, um, but not engaging. They call it engagement, but it's not really engagement because engagement requires back and forth. It requires a mutual topic of interest to both people. For us, it was interesting for us because we were there for the purpose of providing help. And for them, they're seeking the help. So we would personalize it to them and provide specific answers to their issues. Um, and it was always well received. Even when I offered seminars, I did it with the audience. I never stood up there and just, told people information. It just, I don't know. I don't want to hear myself talk that much. So I want to get people's feedback. I want them to ask questions. I want to know what they want to know. What do you want to know? What do you want to hear? What are your issues? What do you got going on? What questions do you have? Because that's true engagement. And especially if you're the person who can provide some help, it's so rewarding.
Well, I think the other thing too is phrasing and how you approach things. I love that you said, approach it with empathy. Approach it with, wow, there are so many options these days. Is there something that I can help you with? Or instead of, because I hear this all the time from salespeople, and this crushes me because I'm like, you just went a path I wouldn't have gone. Because they'll be like, you know what you need to do, or you have to do this, you have to get this. This is absolutely what, and I'm just like, whoa, no absolutes. This is not what I have to do. I may want to consider doing that, but I don't
Hmm.
have to do it. And so I think as much as you're saying the listening, I couldn't agree more with you. It's also working with the wordsmithing of how you
Hmm.
phrase things can be so productive as opposed to this is the best method. This is our, nothing necessarily wrong with that, except that if in that same conversation you used a couple of other absolutes and or well, if you're not going to do this, it's like you have to do it this way. Well, I'm not going to. Well, then everything else now that this person has told me becomes,
Right, is
not,
negated.
yeah, it's like, well, I'm not doing what you said I
Well, and
have.
it keeps the person open who's listening to you
Yeah.
because you're giving them options. People need options. They need to know, option A, B, or C. And so you'll even see, because I know you're in the group, my group, you'll see where I go, well, I can tell you what I would do if it were my kid.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I'd do if it were my pet.
Yep.
Um, and I can tell you why, and I can give you, alternatives and things to think about and, possibilities for you to incorporate. But again, that hard, definitive, this is the way, the absolute way and the only way, I'm out. I'm out for anything.
Well, or the judgment statement. That's the judgments that happen. The other thing too is,
You're doing it wrong.
yeah, oh, I would never have done
I
that.
would never do that.
Yeah, oh, that's awful. I'm glad you're here because I'm going to, correct this behavior that you're
Yes,
doing.
I'm going to save
Uh,
you.
yeah, I'm going to save your pet. I would never have this, or I would never have done it that way. I think the other part of it, though, as well, is being able to break it down. I love what you just said, the ABC, something digestible, something memorable, easy to remember, to bring back in stories, as you and I have talked about many times. It's so much easier to remember a story that
Hmm.
leads to that outcome than trying to give the technical, scientific, and here you go. It's let me give you what you can remember, and here are the reasons with that story that it can generate the outcome that you're looking for. So that communication part of things and just the framing and the wordsmithing can turn a lecture into wow, that was so helpful. They are so helpful there, as opposed to I don't want to go there. Every time I go there, I get a 10-minute lecture about the only way, the best way, and if I'm not going to do it that way, and yet,
Why are you here?
well, and not only that, but it's like there is not only one way available
Right.
anymore, right? And sure, we have our preferences, we have our passions, but I like what you said, and I saw you put that into action, but not just you. I saw your staff do the same thing. They modeled
Hmm.
what you would do. They modeled the listening part, the asking part. And I think that is, so important. What have you tried so far? Where have you seen some results? Oh, I haven't seen any results. Okay. What have you tried so far? Well, this is what I tried. I saw a little bit of improvement here. Okay, great. Now we're building a dialogue. But what we're really also doing too is we're building a relationship and we're building a bridge of trust
Hmm.
that, okay, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and do something I haven't done yet. Or in some cases too, it's just that notion of, well, I tried that. Tell me about that. What was that experience like? Well, I did that. I fed that for 3 days and I saw no difference whatsoever. Okay, interesting. Not uncommon, by the way, because what we've learned over the years is there's a transition period when moving one, like instead of going, oh, well, it doesn't work in 3 days, it's like, okay, I gotcha. What we've learned over the years, much less offensive than saying, well, did you really think it was going to work in 3 days? So that whole framing side of things, and it goes both ways because customers walk in with the most, ridiculous expectations and demands sometimes. And so I know it's easy to just be like, yeah, we don't have the product that fixes everything in 12 minutes. That's called super glue. Okay. So no, there's going to be a process. And if you can't go through the process, I really don't have an answer for you. Not going to achieve anything for either, party in that interaction. Right. And then the other thing too is when they do see that, or when you see them back into your store, ask them how to go. You know, hey, did that work? It had some effect. That is great to hear. No, it had no effect. I'm sorry to hear that. Um, Anything in particular? And they'll share with you. Again, we've talked about, you and I getting feedback from our customer base can be so valuable, especially even when something doesn't work. Why didn't it work? Let me see why it didn't work for my customer. And I think that we want to quickly change the just habitually. We don't want to deal with anything negative or open up a can of worms. So we'll pivot very quickly. Oh, sorry, it didn't work. I'm out. It's like, oh, okay, interesting. Any particular reasons? Because if all of a sudden now I hear that back from three or four different folks, I'm starting to see a pattern. And I want to know, is that what more people are seeing than what I experienced? Because you know me, I know you. I'm very open to alternative ways of getting things to where I want them to be. And so, from the standpoint of this herb worked, that herb didn't, yet this herb that didn't work for my pet works for many other pets.
Right.
And so is it a individualistic thing? Is it a grouping thing? You never know if you're not open to listening to that feedback that you're calling out there. And I like that a lot because I think that's the part of it. And the other thing too is when we're allowed to share our experience, we have much more grace for whatever the outcome was, good, bad, and different,
Right.
because I at least got to share that back with you. I got to give you the feedback. And I've said this many times throughout my career. The best feedback I get is the feedback where someone tells me something didn't work to their expectations or my expectations, because then I can look to why and I can address and turn around the situation so that they don't just walk away. Those who never tell me something didn't work and don't come back to the store and instead blame the store or blame the product or blame the service, well, that's just a lost customer. So you
Right.
want to set that up from the moment they walk in. We're going to have a dialogue. I'm here to listen to you. I'm not going to pontificate. I'm not going to lecture you for a half hour and try and convince you that this is the only pathway. Because if that's what I'm doing, I'm probably driving away more customers than I am attracting and educating.
Well, and set the expectations for the customer. I mean, because everything should always be about, nothing works for every kid.
Yeah.
Not every animal does this have the same result for.
Right.
So, just say, so let's, we can give it a try. You have other options we can do if you want to wait to try that, and just be open to creating a situation where they don't feel like you're um just trying to make a sale and get them out the door.
Right. Right. And I just think again, overall, we all want to be helpful. And it is like, especially in the pet world, we want to share the knowledge that we have, the knowledge that we've gained, the knowledge that we've gone to actual lectures to learn and digest. So your intention is not wrong. Your execution may need to be what needs to addressed in this process. And
Mhm.
yeah, no. So I know we've been pontificating and lecturing throughout this. We would love to hear how you all approach this, not only yourself, but how do you approach it with your staff? How do you make sure that that flows, that philosophy, the ability to educate without becoming oppressively lecturing? Send us an email. Let us know how you're doing it. Practicalpetchat@gmail.com. Drop us a comment in any of the social media networks or wherever you're listening or watching to us. We really appreciate you. Please know this: having that education and that knowledge is always a good thing. So don't not be empowered by that. But again, the power comes from being able to share that with others and have them put that to use as well. So thank you for everything you're doing in the pet world. You make a difference, continue to make a difference. Laura and I appreciate you a lot. Thanks for joining us here on Practical Pet Business.
Thanks, guys.
content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as, nor should it be construed as, professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment for your pets. Always seek the advice of a qualified veterinarian with any questions you may have regarding your pet's health or medical condition. Never disregard professional veterinary advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. The hosts and the guests of this podcast are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared during these episodes. Any reliance on the information provided is solely at your own risk. Copyright 2025 Practical Pet Chat, all rights reserved. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or reproduction of any content from this podcast, including but not limited to audio, scripts, and show notes, is prohibited without prior written consent. The opinions and views expressed by the host and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Practical Pet Chat.